In looking at our conceptualizations of design, we need to define claims and assumptions. There are a lot of claims and assumptions that need to be considered normally in interaction designs. When we conceptualize design, we need to identify the claims and assumptions of that design. So for to be understood here, I pasted here the exact text that we need to consider about working with assumptions when we look at the website of a large company here. So let me read the text. A large software company has decided that it needs to develop an upgrade of its web browser for smartphones because its marketing team has discovered that many of the company's customers have switched over to using another mobile browser. The marketing people assume, so there's an assumption that something is wrong with their browser and that the rival have a better product, but they don't know what the problem is with their browser. So these are assumptions. The assumption is that something is wrong with their design. The design team put in charge of this product assumes that they need to improve the usability of a number of browser functions. They claim that this will win back users by making features of the interface simpler, more attractive, and more flexible to use. So when we look at some of the assumption, you can imagine how the company actually discuss to better improve some designs, and we have assumption and claims and that we need to work on in order to address a particular problem or concern at the company. So here the user researchers and the design team conduct an initial user study investigating how people use the company's web browser on a variety of smartphones. They also look at other mobile web browsers in the market and compare their functionality and usability. They observe and talk to many different users. They discover several things about the usability of the web browser, some of which they were not expecting. One revelation is that many of their customers have never actually used the bookmarking tool. They present their findings to the rest of the team and have long discussion about why each of them thinks it is not being used. So we are stuck now on various assumptions and claims maybe on the use of bookmarking. So we have one member claims that the web browser function for organizing bookmarks is tricky and error prone, and she assumes that this is the reason why many users do not use it. So here the claims, when we talk about claims, these are some of the items that can be observed or might provide evidences of what or input from the user itself. But the assumption here is the assumption is just an assumption, not really validated from the perspective of the user. No? And so claims, some you have some input from the user or you can provide some evidences of why it happens, while assumptions actually some of your assumptions maybe or your own interpretation of the cause or the reason behind it. Another member backs her up, saying how awkward it is to use this method and when wanting to move bookmarks between folders. One of the user experience architects agrees, noting how several of the users with whom he spoke mentioned how difficult and time-consuming they found it when trying to move backward bookmarks between folders. Now they often ended up accidentally putting them into the wrong folders. No? So a software engineer reflects on what has been said, and he makes the claim that the bookmark function is no longer needed since he assumes that most people don't do what he does, which is to revisit a website by flicking through the history of previous visited pages. So here we have claims and assumption. It follows. This is the claim and the assumption. Another member of the team disagreed with him, claiming that many users do not like to leave a trail of the sites they have visited and would prefer to be able to save only the sites that they think they might want to revisit. The bookmark function provides them with this option. Another option discussed is whether to include most frequently visited sites as thumbnail images or as tabs. The software engineer agrees that providing all of the option could be a solution, but worries how this might clutter the small screen interface. They already have a claim. claim and assumptions, and this might be an input to us, a designer, that we need to look at into some of the claims and assumptions of our users so that we can address those problems, and that would indicate some of these problems or discovery later in our stage or phases of the interaction design. If you remember the double diamond of design. After much discussion on the pros and cons of bookmarking versus history list, the team decides to investigate further how to support effectively the saving, ordering, and retrieving of websites using a mobile web browser. All agree that the format of the existing web browser structure is too rigid, and that one of their priorities is to see how they can create a simpler way of revisiting website on smartphones. So these are some of the discussions on how we can identify or have in assumptions and claims about our existing designs, and the basis of why we need to redesign some of our products or services in the company. So claims and assumptions can be used